The year is 1908. In the aftermath of the Great War, the Czwartek Union Republic finds itself in a state of fragile, uneasy quiet. But as Major Jelena Roska looks upon her soldiers, a haunting question hangs in the air. Is this true peace, or just the calm before a different kind of storm? In the streets, that silence is shattered by the sound of gunfire. This isn't a battlefield, but a nation tearing itself apart from within. For the citizens, this peace feels more like a prison, a temporary armistice in a cycle of never-ending violence. Czwartek is a buffer state, a tiny pawn on a global chessboard caught between the giant Gardarite Kingdom to the east and the Krais Federation to the west. To the superpowers, this land is a mere tool for convenience, a place where peace is imposed rather than earned, leaving the Republic hollowed by war. To protect this hard-won stability from any and all threats, a new shadow was born. From the ranks of the trenched nobles, veterans who survived the worst of the war, came a secret service with a singular, bloody oath to protect the state at any cost. They're the Independent Battalion, officially known as the Opera House. But to the people who whisper about them in hatred, they are the Treason Agency. And at their helm is Major Jelena Roska, a woman who manipulates the chaos of a nation like a ruthless director. Outside the Prime Minister's residence, the air is thick with rage. The citizens feel betrayed, screaming that this peace was forced upon them by their own leaders. They refuse to accept a security treaty with their former enemies, seeing it as the ultimate act of cowardice. The crowd cries for blood grow louder. They demand the heads of the traitors, brandishing weapons and calling for the expulsion of foreign influences. To them, the government has sold the Republic's freedom for a hollow, dishonorable quiet. Inside, Major Jelena Roska watches the chaos with an unsettling calm. She notes the arrival of visitors with a playful disdain. To her, the sheer scale of the protest is puzzling. Or perhaps it just means the upcoming performance will have a full house. She knows the truth behind the noise. Only a limited portion of the military was given the false lead, yet the masses are here, right on schedule. It's always the ones who think they're finding the truth who end up being the easiest to manipulate. The official she's with watches the scene with a mix of pity and cold calculation. Seeing the Republic's culture regress into cliché protests and mob rule is disappointing to him. It's a script he's read many times before. In his eyes, these true patriots lack the education or intelligence to see they're being used as props. They aren't heroes. They're just an audience that doesn't realize it's part of the show. Someone clearly set this up, and he intends to find out who. Jelena blows a plume of smoke, her eyes sharp and cold. If the plot is straightforward, it's only so that idiots can follow along. But it seems someone has finally found a specific medicine to cure this outbreak of loud-mouthed patriotism. She lets out a dark, mocking laugh at the mention of a cure. I didn't know there was a cure for idiocy, she muses. The official's response is chillingly pragmatic. Lead bullets are cheap, and as any surgeon will tell you, corpses don't talk nonsense. The time for talk is over. As a veteran of the trenches, Jelena feels a grim responsibility to teach these bastards how to wage war properly. If they want to dance on the edge of chaos, she's more than ready to provide the rhythm. She calls herself a director and screenwriter, viewing the upcoming crackdown as a theatrical performance. To the official, it will be a massacre of amateurs. To Jelena, it's just another day at the Opera House. Outside, a truck smashes through the barricades, a visual signal that the peace is about to be shattered completely. Jelena doesn't care about advocating for love or olive branches. She's here to do the dirty work that keeps the state alive. Jelena salutes, her expression shifting to one of professional focus. Well then, it's showtime, she declares. She invites them all to enjoy the Opera House's petit tragicomedy, a performance where the actors won't be coming back for an encore. As a unit moves out, the official realizes the rot goes deeper. There's a mole in the General Staff office. The beasts have contaminated his intelligence bureau, making this forced peace even more fragile than he feared. He crushes his cigar, his patience at an end. In the corridors, Jolanta prepares her team, including Lieutenant Jakub. She looks at the expensive barricades and sees only props for the politicians to utilize. It's time to get to work, and she has a very specific operation in mind. With a terrifying grin, she explains they'll be shooting precisely at their heads, the only way to truly cure their idiocy. Her soldiers laugh along, the dark humor a reflection of the cold efficiency of their unit. When asked about her loyalty, Jolanta's eyes flash with a complex, cynical fire. She isn't protecting the Prime Minister himself, but the residents, the symbol of the nation. She calls herself a quisling patriot, a traitor who loves her country more than its people. The contrast is stark. In the streets, the mob shouts for the blood of traitors. In the shadows, the traitors laugh, knowing they're the only ones keeping the Republic from total collapse into the hands of foreign powers. Jolanta gives her final orders to Lieutenant Jakub. Catch a few rioters to interrogate, but leave the rest to the MP at the back. She wants a chattering parrot to bring back for questioning, someone who can reveal the true script behind this riot. The soldiers snap to attention, their faces grim and unyielding under their caps. The stage is set, the targets are locked, and the curtain is finally rising on their deadly performance. Let's get started. Jolanta's voice rings out, cold and absolute. No more warnings. As Jolanta leads her unit forward, the shouting of the mob is suddenly silenced by the staccato rhythm of machine gun fire. The medicine is being administered, and for the protesters outside, the show has reached a bloody climax they never saw coming. The protesters are stunned. They never expected the army to show up, let alone with this kind of cold, calculated precision. One of them screams at Major Jelena Roska, branding her a traitor and a foreigner's pet, spitting vitriol that she belongs in a bedroom rather than on a battlefield. To Jolanta, his insults are just the chatter of a monkey that's fluent in Republican. Jolanta looks at the flag being torn and defaced. To these rioters, the forced peace is worthless, a stain on their national pride. They see the soldiers as cowards who have betrayed the trench nobles and the soul of the Republic. But Jolanta only sees an opportunity for a lesson in reality. It's a bitter irony that the rioters scream patriotic slogans while shooting at their own motherland's flag. For Jolanta, their patriotism is nothing more than a dangerous, uneducated lie, a performance that is tearing the country apart from the inside. She watches with a gaze that is both bored and deadly. Major Jolanta Roska smiles, a dark, predatory expression crossing her face as she reaches for a grenade. Beside her, the young recruit Monika Slusarska watches in silent apprehension, her eyes wide as she witnesses the casual cruelty of her superior. Well then, Jolanta purrs, as if she were picking out a prop for a play. The Opera House unit doesn't hesitate for a second. They fire through the smoke and debris, moving like a well-oiled machine against the disorganized mob. While the rioters have passion, the soldiers have training, and the gap between them is quickly filled with the sound of lead and screams. Respect the national flag, you filthy swines. Jolanta roars, her voice cutting through the chaos like a whip. She throws the grenade with terrifying glee, promising to grant their wish for war with every ounce of violence she can muster, her face twisted in a manic grin. The explosion rocks the street, and Jolanta commands her troops to mow them down without mercy. There is no room for negotiation here, only the cold reality of a state-sanctioned massacre. This is war, she shouts, her eyes wide with a bloodthirsty light as the protesters fall. Jolanta walks through the carnage, stepping over the bodies of those she called patriots. A dying man begs for help, his voice a mere whisper in the settling dust. Jolanta tilts her head, her smile never fading as she stares him down. "I can't hear you," she replies, relishing the silence that follows his last breath. She continues her rampage, firing point-blank into the crowd with a laugh that is pure madness. "How about showing some gratitude in all that blood?" she screams. She tells them to rejoice as they die in the name of the peace they so desperately tried to destroy, calling it a gift they finally received. As the smoke begins to clear, Monika Slusarska reports with a trembling voice that the resistance has been neutralized. Jolanta seems to suddenly remember her orders, casually mentioning that she was supposed to capture at least a few of them alive for questioning. Jolanta draws her saber, her expression shifting from manic to a chillingly playful boredom. She offers the survivors a choice: raise a hand if they're alive to make things easier, or she'll personally check each body by stabbing it through the chest. Her invitation is as cold and sharp as the steel in her hand. Behind the lines, the other officers of the Opera House watch the aftermath with professional detachment. They comment on the rioters' poor weapon handling, calling them worse than raw recruits. Even the sight of children among the dead only elicits a cold, detached sense of pity for their unfortunate upbringing. They discuss the logistics of a massacre with chilling indifference, lighting cigarettes over the bodies. They wonder if there's a problem with keeping the details to themselves, even casually suggesting it might be easier to just blow the whole place up next time rather than dealing with a mess. To these veterans, the chaos was nothing more than an annoyance, a waste of ammunition. They mocked the rioters' lack of coordination, telling the survivors to keep an eye on their kids next time they decide to stage a revolution, as if they were discussing a playground accident. Even as the main fighting stops, the soldiers continue to critique their performance. They complain about the rioters being small targets and agile, making it difficult to aim properly. It's a professional review of a slaughter, devoid of any human empathy. "What a pain," one of them grumbles, his eyes fixed on the horizon. They agree that if they had the permission, they would have used high-explosive shells to level the entire area and be done with it. To these men, the lives of their countrymen are just obstacles in the way of a quiet night. From above, the Prime Minister's residence sits silent once more, though the grounds are now littered with the remnants of the failed uprising. The theater is empty, the performance over, and the peace of the Republic has been restored through the most violent means possible. The cost of this forced stability is laid bare in the dirt. Soldiers move through the rubble, their boots crunching on broken glass and spent casings as they verify the deaths. For the Opera House, this wasn't a tragedy, it was just another job well done. The scene shifts back in time to the Republic Military Academy, a place of order and tradition. Here, the world is still clean, and the promise of a bright military career still feels real for the elite students within its hallowed halls. Inside, Monika Slusarska, the Academy's top student, is called into the office of a high-ranking official. She stands at attention, expecting a prestigious assignment to the capital's 2nd Regiment as a reward for her hard work and dedication. "Cadet, there has been a change to your placement," the officer says, his face a mask of stern indifference. He informs her that she is no longer assigned to the capital's 2nd Regiment, catching Monika completely off guard and shattering her expectations. Monika is stunned, her mind racing for a reason. By tradition, the top student gets to choose their placement, but the officer quickly reminds her that tradition is not law. In the military, you follow orders, and the choice of your superiors always overrides your own. "Reporting at the Legal Affairs Bureau by 0900 tomorrow," he commands, handing her the new letter of appointment. Monika salutes, her voice steady despite the confusion swirling in her mind. As she leaves, the officer watches her go, marveling that the maniacs of the Opera House managed to pull the top student into their dark world. Away from the chaos, director Sergio Heinemann studies the morning headlines through a cloud of cigarette smoke. The security treaty has been ratified, but it's the bloody uprising at the Prime Minister's residence that dominates the news, a violent spectacle that served its purpose, even if the public only sees the surface of the tragedy. Sergio knows that the silence in those headlines was bought by his opera house. He views his unit as a necessary evil, a tool to balance a nation teetering between radical activism and political compromise. As he exhales, he contemplates the grim reality of the military's future, leaving the residents to settle into a heavy, blood-stained quiet. The hall of the Prime Minister's residence is silent now. but the scars of the battle are everywhere. The smoke clears, leaving behind only the wreckage of a failed uprising and the heavy presence of the military occupying the halls of power. Major Jelena Roska is pleased. The stage was set, and the performance went exactly as planned. Captain Robert Neymark reports that the mop-up is complete, and the focus now shifts to interrogating the prisoners. However, there's a grim footnote. Many of the rioters were just child soldiers. Roska looks down at the casualties with a cold, unreadable expression. The tragedy of children caught in the crossfire doesn't move her, but the loss of her own trained men is a different story. To her, this is the reality of a nation that has lost its way. She demands the casualty report. Robert informs her that the MP squad had no fatalities, only 2 wounded, and Giacomo the medic is already on the scene. But the captain's hesitation suggests there is worse news yet to come. The air grows cold as Roska lights a cigarette. Robert delivers the blow. First Lieutenant Jakub is dead. The news hits her harder than she lets on, his name carrying the weight of a trusted comrade, lost in the most dishonorable way. Roska stares at the body, her face a mask of simmering fury. Yet another one, she mutters. She knows the routine, the letter to the family, the official cause of death. But the how is what truly burns her soul. The details are sickening. Jakub wasn't killed in a fair fight. He was shot from behind. The trigger was pulled by a child soldier, one who had supposedly surrendered, exploiting the soldier's mercy to deliver a lethal betrayal. Rauska's eyes widen as the realization sinks in. Her expression shifts from cold professionalism to a deep, dark realization of the absolute depravity her country has sunk into. The patriots aren't just misguided, they are monsters. She erupts into a manic, mocking laugh. These swines talk of honor and duty, calling themselves patriots while using children to murder heroes in the back. To Roska, their filth-filled mouths have no right to criticize those who bleed for the motherland. Her rage manifests in a violent outburst. She brands them as beasts and vermin, screaming at the injustice of all. In her eyes, they aren't even human anymore. They are a plague that must be slaughtered for the sake of the Republic. Needing to cool off, Roska tells her men she's going for a stroll before meeting the director. She walks through the ruined streets, her uniform a stark contrast to the poverty and despair that lines the city's bones. In an alley, she finds children selling cigarettes, a common sight in a war-torn economy where kids have to work to survive. The innocence of the scene is tainted by the knowledge of what other children in the Republic are doing with guns. She buys a pack, her tone dismissive yet observant. She asks the boy if he has any better ones, showing a preference for domestic brands even as the world around her crumbles. She wants to breathe the air of her home, even if it's thick with smoke. She prefers the domestic ones, not wanting her air to be tainted by their allies as well. It's a subtle nod to her deep-seated resentment of the foreign powers currently pulling the Republic's strings under the guise of peace. The boy complains that the Republican currency is worthless. Nobody wants it if it's not royal notes or federal bills. Roska sighs, seeing the literal devaluation of her country's soul. She tosses him better currency, telling the big brother to keep up the work. Back at the Opera House headquarters, the atmosphere is heavy. Director Sergio Heinemann is waiting. He is the mastermind behind this unit, a man who understands that in this performance, the director's hands must be covered in blood. Sergio brings up the matter of supplementary personnel. Someone needs to take over Jakub's job, and he claims to have found a news source. Roska is skeptical, wondering if their pool of soldiers hasn't already been exhausted by the war. Roska strongly objects. She doesn't want just anyone in the Opera House. To her, the unit is for the elite, the trench nobles who have proven themselves in fire and blood. She has no patience for someone who hasn't been through the trial of steel. But Sergio is firm. In this quasi-war, numbers are essential, even if they aren't veterans. He called for the new recruit, Monika Slesarska, to step out. He recommends her highly, regardless of Rauska's elitist attitude. Monika steps forward, her posture rigid and her gaze determined. She is the newest recruit of the Opera House, a fresh face in a unit of scarred veterans. Rosca praises her with a gaze that feels like it's searching for any sign of weakness. "I am Second Lieutenant Monika Slisarska," she declares, saluting formally. She's been posted to the Independent Battalion's Legal Affairs Bureau as a legal officer. Rosca introduces herself in turn, her voice dripping with a dangerous, sophisticated edge. Rosca puts on a mockingly friendly face. She admits she has nothing against Monika, but warns her that this is a special workplace. If she's here on the director's recommendation, she'll keep the pleasantries short and the reality lessons harsh. Monika's response is eager and professional, but Rosca just whispers to Dave, one of the officials, asking for a favor. She's already writing a new script for this recruit, one that doesn't involve polite greetings or small talk for very long. Dave watches them depart with a knowing smirk. Love and war may have no rules, but the Major's dangerous script for her new recruit is already unfolding. Walking in Rauska's shadow, Monika remains blissfully unaware of the dark role she has just been cast to play. Outside, the command car is waiting to whisk them away. Rosca casually informs the young lieutenant that it's time for her proper introduction to the rest of the unit. Monika's brow furrows in confusion, not yet realizing that in the opera house, a greeting is merely the prologue to a much more violent performance. In the back of the car, Monika Slisarska steals a glance at her new commander. She finds Major Jelena Rosca to be a complete enigma, breathtakingly beautiful, yet possessing a coldness that seems to chill the very air around them. As they drive through the capital, the silence between them is heavy with unspoken questions. Rauska's eyes are fixed on the traffic ahead, her expression one of mild annoyance. She mocks the audacity of the Federation people and their poor driving skills, casually labeling herself a foreign collaborationist. To her, those who spread xenophobia are little more than animals, far less reasonable than the enemies they claim to hate. The conversation shifts to the role of a soldier in a fractured society. Rauska's voice is firm. Soldiers should never get involved in politics. She believes that if it weren't for the animals stoking unrest, the military could maintain its dignity. For her, the line between duty and political meddling is a sacred one. Monika looks out the window at the passing city. The capital is a ghost of its former self, the glory it held just 4 years ago, now buried under layers of post-war grime and despair. The buildings stand as silent witnesses to a nation that has lost its way, struggling to find a new identity in the rubble. Suddenly, Rosca orders Monika to pull over. She has spotted someone on the sidewalk, a man sitting amidst the debris. He is a disabled veteran, a remnant of the Great War, forgotten by the state he once bled for. Rosca steps out of the car, her posture softening in a rare display of empathy. The veteran, a man named Gustav, looks up in shock. He hasn't heard the name Jelena Rosca in years. He remembers her as the commanding officer of 2nd Lieutenant Jakub at Ilga. To him, she's a ghost from a past where honor still meant something, a guardian for those who didn't make it back. Gustav's eyes are filled with a deep, haunting sadness. He survived as a prisoner of war, but looking at his current state, he wonders if it would have been better to die on the battlefield. The weight of survival in a country that treats its heroes with contempt is a burden he can barely carry. Rosca places a hand on his shoulder, her voice surprisingly gentle. She tells him that the indignities he suffered are her own, and his disgrace is hers to share. For a brief moment, the ruthless major is gone, replaced by a soldier who truly understands the bond forged in the trenches. "Be proud," she tells him, her gaze intense. "You are a hero who fulfilled his duties." Monika watches from the car, stunned by this sudden shift in her commander. It's a glimpse into a side of Rosca that is hidden behind layers of cynicism and blood. Rosca hands him some money and her contact information, dismissing his concerns about being an inconvenience. To her, a fellow comrade could never be a burden. She shakes his hand firmly, a trench noble, acknowledging another, their shared history more valuable than any currency. As she prepares to leave, Rosca promises to catch up with him another day, and next time, she'll bring the booze. Gustav watches her go, a flicker of pride returning to his weary eyes. For at least one person in this republic, his sacrifice still matters. Back in the car, the moment of grace is quickly shattered by reality. They drive through a crowd of protesters screaming for work and blaming the government for their misery. Rosca finds it heartrending that a hero like Gustav is a beggar, while these people treat duty and sacrifice with such contempt. The post-war depression is visible in every angry face. They demand reparations and shout no to the Federation's protection fees. Monica observes the simmering xenophobia, wondering if it's getting worse. To her, confronting the kingdom without the Federation's support is nothing short of suicidal idiocy. The protesters block their path, shouting for equality and demanding an end to preferential treatment for veterans. Rauska's patience snaps. Her eyes fill with a dark, terrifying rage. Run over those swines. Now, she commands Monica, her voice a low, lethal growl. Monica is horrified, but Rosca doesn't flinch. To her, these people are swines talking like humans, a sight so disgusting she can't bear it. She looks at the mob with pure, unadulterated loathing, seeing them as the true traitors to the Republic's future. Rosca notices Monica's shock and lets out a small, chilling smirk. "You must be kidding, right?" Monica stammers. Rauska's reply is cryptic. "Oh, am I?" She admits she's half serious, leaving Monica to wonder just how far her commander is willing to go to clear her path. They arrive at the Republican Army's General Staff Headquarters, a grand building that serves as the brain of the nation's military. Inside, the atmosphere is formal and tense as they prepare to report on the recent events. The performance at the Prime Minister's residence is now the subject of high-level scrutiny. They meet with a high-ranking official who wears a monocle and a permanent look of disapproval. He notes that the security treaty has been signed without a hitch and sarcastically asks if Rosca wants a medal for the bloodshed she caused. To him, her methods are a stain on the Army's reputation. Rosca is undeterred, meeting his gaze with a cold smile. She tells him that cleaning up for the Intelligence Department's failures isn't worth a medal. She was simply fixing others' mistakes. She then turns the tables, asking why her unit shouldn't take over the hunt for moles within the General Staff itself. She accuses him of trying to hide from reality behind the excuse of shell shock. She points out that the disinformation regarding the treaty signing was only distributed within these walls. To Rosca, the xenophobe animal, the traitor within their own ranks, is definitely present in the room. The official relents, agreeing to a joint investigation despite his obvious distaste for the idea. He then pivots to a more personal question, asking Major Rosca what her take is on receiving medals for killing patriots. Monica watches the exchange, her breath hitching at the sheer tension. Rosca doesn't hesitate. "Killing the patriots of another country for your own, isn't that the rule of war?" she asks, her tone casual, almost bored. To her, the concept of patriotism is relative, defined only by the side of the border you stand on. It's an honorable thing, she claims, as long as it serves your state. The official's eyes narrow behind his monocle. He challenges her directly. "What are your thoughts on killing patriots of your own country?" It's a direct reference to the massacre at the PM's residence, a challenge to her conscience and her loyalty to the Republic's citizens. Rosca closes her eyes for a moment, then looks back at the official with a gaze that is terrifyingly empty. "I don't understand," she says softly, "because I haven't murdered any patriots of our country." In her mind, those who threaten the state's stability have forfeited their right to that title, leaving behind only the cold data of a casualty report. Her final words in the office are a chilling testament to her worldview. Those who proclaimed themselves patriots were nothing but swine in her eyes, and she feels no guilt for their slaughter. Her only concern, she says with a cold grin, is her sword rusting from their lard, a dark prelude to the etiquette and harsh lessons she is about to introduce to her new recruit. Major Jolanta Rosca turns to Monica with a look of cold instruction. To her, what just happened wasn't a confrontation, but appropriate etiquette for their line of work. She reminds the rookie that the intelligence department is crawling with moles, and their singular purpose at the opera house is to exterminate them like the vermin they are. They descend into the bowels of the building, entering the opera house underground cells. The stone walls are thick and ancient, designed to keep the screams of the Republic's enemies far from the ears of the public. This is the heart of the treason agency, and Monica is about to see its true face. A man salutes them with a casual, unsettling charm. This is Giacomo Lotti, a man who views new faces as a rarity in this dark place. He makes a crude remark about Monica being a virgin to their world, suggesting that the sooner she loses her innocence, the better for everyone involved. Rosca casually leaves Monica in Giacomo's hands, dismissing her shock. "Let's try to make you an adult," Giacomo purrs, his smile predatory. In the opera house, growing up means learning the dark arts of state-sanctioned destruction, and Monica is his latest pupil. Captain Robert Neymark, the stern deputy commander, enters the room with a heavy stride. He's a man of action and few words, and his first request is chilling. He wants a few training bodies so the new recruit can practice the techniques they're about to demonstrate. They look at a prisoner, bound and gagged in a dark cell. Robert notes with a cold indifference that they haven't yet selected which prisoners don't mind dying for a training session. To these men, human lives are just material for a curriculum of pain. "Let's first learn the importance of setting the mood," Giacomo says, his tone almost theatrical. He points a gun at the terrified prisoner, treating the threat of execution as if it were a stage prop designed to elicit the perfect performance from his audience. Monica tries to maintain her military bearing, shouting her name and rank as a second lieutenant. But Robert's expression turns even grimmer. He tells her she just signed that prisoner's death warrant. By revealing her identity to an enemy, she has made his survival an impossibility for the sake of national security. Secrecy is the only currency that matters here. Robert explains that loose lips bring disaster, and if an enemy learns their names, they must be dealt with permanently. Monica realizes that her very presence here is a lethal secret, one that has already cost a man his life. Giacomo dismisses her budding guilt with a wave of his hand. To him, the prisoner is a subhuman who murdered a comrade, and his death is a foregone conclusion. Robert introduces himself formally as the deputy commander, reminding Monica that her role as a legal officer will be very different from anything she imagined. Giacomo Lotti, a retired medic turned forensicist, flashes a brilliant, disturbing smile. He's the one who will guide Monica through the shadows. His specialty isn't saving lives, but taking them apart piece by piece until only the truth remains. The demonstration begins with brutal violence as Giacomo kicks the bound man. He tells the prisoner to thank the world for every breath he takes like a human being, because that privilege is about to be stripped away in the name of the Republic. Giacomo prepares a kettle of water, his eyes shining with a dark curiosity. He begins to explain the mechanics of waterboarding with the clinical detachment of a scientist. It's a method that leaves no scars, yet inflicts the absolute terror of drowning on its victim. He describes the sensation of drowning as the lungs reflexively expel air, causing a state of total panic. In a very short time, the prisoner will experience a simulated death that feels more real than life itself. Monica can only watch in horror as the procedure begins. As the water pours and the prisoner struggles for air, Giacomo calls it a valuable experience for the recruit. Monica is stunned, but Robert's voice is firm. At the opera house, she must relearn everything she knows from scratch. The rules of the academy don't apply here. Monica stammers that torture is illegal, her moral compass spinning wildly. Robert just looks at her with a cynical, weary gaze. He calls it nonviolent and legal, intense interrogation, the terrifying doublespeak of an agency that has traded its soul for results. Giacomo simply tells her there's plenty of time to learn. Giacomo leans in, his face twisted into a menacing grin that promises a long and dark education. Starting from today, We can learn how to destroy a person together, he whispers. His final words echo in the cold cell, a terrifying welcome to her new life. Welcome to the Opera House. Monika Slusarska starts her day with a heavy dose of reality. As she brushes her teeth, Jelena Rauska's words about this being a special workplace ring in her ears. A look at the morning mail reveals an invoice for 12 million republicals, a staggering sum in their inflation-riddled economy. It seems membership in the Officers' Club and new uniforms aren't cheap. Monika sighs, the weight of the debt and the strange nature of her job already taking their toll. This special life certainly has a high price tag. The scene shifts to the Opera House reception room. Jelena Rauska is meeting with Captain Robert, a stern-looking officer from the Intelligence Bureau with neatly combed light hair. They discuss the paranoia spreading through the department. Rauska admits she expected a larger group of officers, but Robert explains they want to keep the internal investigation into a suspected mole as quiet as possible. Jelena, ever the provocateur, playfully asks if he might be the mole himself. The tension is palpable. Robert takes offense, claiming that even if he were a dog, he'd be a hound, not a lapdog. Monika watches from the side, worried that Jelena is pushing too hard, but the major simply smiles and offers a mock apology, hoping for satisfying results. They gather around a table to plan their investigation. Robert questions the best way to begin. Should they start rummaging through the general staff? Jelena warns that poking into the general staff's business would be like disturbing a hornet's nest. Robert is skeptical. He asks how they can guarantee their evidence is credible if they avoid external interference. He even questions if there really is a mole at all, or if they're just acting on the Opera House's word. Jelena's expression turns deadly serious under her officer's hat. I believe so, she says firmly, and that's enough for me. Her conviction leaves no room for debate. A long, tense silence follows as Jelena and Robert lock eyes. Monika tries to break the tension with a nervous smile, suggesting they conduct a joint investigation as planned. She's relieved when they both agree. Having feared a fight was inevitable. Jelena quickly takes charge, appointing Monika as the liaison officer. She sharply advises Robert to watch his words, asking if he's implying that the Opera House might be the one leaking information. The captain is clearly taken aback by her sudden intensity. Robert holds his ground, swearing on his saber and honor that his subordinates know their duty. He insists there's no proof the leaks come from his side, though Jelena remains unconvinced. As Robert departs, the three of them exchange formal salutes. Once he's gone, Jelena's mask slips. She tells Monika to keep a close eye on him, calling him a son of a bitch and promising to kick his ass if he meddles too much. Their car pulls away from the Opera House. In the back of the car, Monika asks if there really is a mole. Jelena muses that in love and war, reading intentions is a matter of life and death. She believes if the general staff is hunting the mole, they'll target the head first. Monika promises to keep that in mind. Jelena lights a cigar, a cold smirk on her face. She tells Monika not to overthink it. To her, this is just a simple task of vermin eradication. They will squash the traitors and use them as fertilizer for the motherland. They arrive at a grimmer location, the underground cells of the Opera House. The cold stone walls and heavy iron bars signal that the investigation is about to take a dark turn. Inside, Robert and Monika witness a scene that turns their stomachs. Water is being poured over a hooded figure. Robert looks on with grim disapproval, while Monika is clearly distressed, murmuring again, as if she's seen this brutality before. The hood is removed, revealing a young boy, bound and gagged. Robert is outraged, demanding to know what this is. Jelena coldly describes the child as a beast in human form. Robert protests, arguing that a child shouldn't be treated like an adult. The debate continues behind bars. Jelena asks if age still matters once someone has raised a weapon against the state. Robert insists that the boy is still just a child with a future, a view Jelena finds amusingly naive. Jelena mocks Robert's high evaluation of trash that shot a patriot in the back. She decides it's time to begin their joint mole extermination and hands Robert a pitcher of water, challenging him to participate. Robert is stunned by her request. Jolanta's eye glints with a terrifying intensity. She tells Robert to make the swine sing, while Monica watches with a growing sense of dread, realizing the situation is spiraling out of control. Robert refuses, calling the idea of getting the truth through torture stupid. He argues that people will simply give false testimonies just to escape the pain. Jolanta just laughs, calling him even dumber than she thought. With a twisted smile, Jolanta tells him that the role of this pig is simply to scream and spread fear. She asks Robert mockingly if he even speaks swine, dismissing his moral objections entirely. Jolanta takes a syringe and prepares to inject the boy, who is already being physically restrained. The child's eyes are wide with terror as the needle approaches. Jolanta's cold smile never wavers. The boy's screams of agony fill the cellar. Robert watches, his face pale with horror as the child's body shakes. The raw brutality of the scene is almost too much for the captain to bear. Jolanta lays out her grim worldview. While pain only leads to lies, it's fear that brings the absolute truth. As she watches the boy's resolve crumble under the weight of his terror, she turns her cold gaze back to the horrified Robert, inviting him to finally take part. Robert stands frozen, his silence a stark contrast to the boy's screams. He's beginning to realize that the Opera House doesn't just hunt traitors. It dismantles the very honor he swore to uphold. But in this basement, Jolanta sees his hesitation as nothing more than a weakness to be mocked. Jolanta Roska leans in with a twisted smile, mocking Robert's hesitation. "Do you have a reason to sympathize with this swine?" she asks, her eyes glinting with a terrifying lack of empathy. To her, the boy is nothing more than a tool to be used. Robert tries to maintain his composure, insisting that as an officer, he has his honor and duties to uphold. Jolanta's response is a cold smirk. She claims it's the same for her. That's exactly why she's the one who has to handle the dirty work that others are too weak for. The weight of the task sinks in for Robert as he stares at the water pitcher. He's a man of rules and structure, now forced into a world where those things are twisted beyond recognition by Jolanta's philosophy. In a sudden shift, Jolanta orders the boy's release. Monika Slusarska is visibly confused, even asking if it's an execution order in disguise. But Jolanta is clear. She believes the lesson of fear they've already GORAC is enough for a child. Sowing that fear is far more effective than just killing him. Monica is still hesitant, worrying about whether they need approval from the security officer. Jolanta dismisses her concerns with a wave of her hand, telling the young lieutenant to just explain it as she sees fit. The hierarchy here is whatever Jolanta says it is. A new face arrives, Sergeant Gustav. Jolanta welcomes him warmly, noting she's been expecting his arrival. She tells Monica to get the boy and the other prisoners out quickly, calling them trash that should be cleared away on such a joyful day. Gustav, a grizzled veteran, is eager to prove his worth. Jolanta assigns him to work under Robert's command for now, encouraging him to get familiar with the Opera House. She calls him a trench noble, a term of respect for those who have truly seen the horrors of the front line. The scene moves to the Opera House canteen. It's a stark contrast to the interrogation room, a quiet place where the staff can find a brief moment of normalcy amidst the chaos of their work. Monica and Gustav discuss the harsh economic reality outside. With hyperinflation running rampant, their salaries feel like toilet paper. Even a cheap pack of cigarettes costs 50,000 republicals normally. They feel incredibly lucky that the canteen still uses the old, publicly listed prices. To them, the Opera House is an economic oasis. Robert is still dwelling on the case, questioning Monica about the decision to keep the children connected to the investigation under arrest. Monica, ever the dutiful subordinate, says she's just following orders and isn't in a position to make decisions. Robert is frustrated, but has to accept it. Robert decides he'll have to take his concerns directly to Major Roska. They find her lighting up another cigarette, seemingly unbothered by the moral weight that is crushing the captain. Robert makes a dry comment about how the opera house is as elegant as its name suggests. Jolanta notices his gaze and asks if he's a heavy smoker too. Robert admits he hasn't been smoking much lately, mostly because his wallet is empty thanks to the outside prices. Jolanta offers him a cigarette, and Robert is almost hesitant to accept such a luxury. She assures him it's not a problem, her casual attitude toward these scarce goods highlighting the opera house's immense resources. Jolanta points out that the canteen here is a world apart from the outside. Robert takes a puff and smiles, noting the difference is like night and day. Inside these walls, they live like kings compared to the starving public. Monica is curious about why Jolanta has such a massive supply of cigarettes. Jolanta, smoking away, admits she's a chain smoker and needs to stockpile them whenever she can, preparing for the times when she might be cut off from her supply. It's a survivor's mindset. Jolanta offers one to Monica, who tentatively tries it. The reaction is immediate. Monica starts coughing violently, the strong nicotine hit clearly too much for a non-smoker. Robert and Gustav watch with amusement, Robert noting that it's a terrible taste for those who aren't used to it. The conversation turns back to Major Rosca. Robert notes that complaints about her paranoia are on the rise. He feels people will naturally push back when you try to fix a system that they don't believe is broken. His idealism is still fighting against the opera house's brutal methods. Jolanta dismisses the complaints, her focus entirely on the mole. Robert tries to explain the difference in philosophy. Intelligence units aim to contain information, but counterintelligence, like the opera house, is designed to squeeze out information by any means necessary. It's a fundamental clash of missions. As they walk through the grand hallways, Monica observes that the opera house and the rest of society seem to exist in two different worlds. Robert agrees, though he thinks extraordinary might be putting it lightly. The privilege they enjoy inside is jarring compared to the ruins outside. They stop by a street vendor selling basic goods. Robert, curious, asks the price of a small pack of cigarettes, wanting to confirm the rumors about the outside market. The answer shocks him, 100,000 republicans for a single pack. Robert stares at his money, realizing just how deep the economic collapse truly goes. The special treatment they get at the opera house is the only thing keeping them from the same fate as these street sellers. Monica points out that while the opera house has loads of money, the rest of the world is struggling just to survive. The intelligence department, despite its status, is simply no match for the sheer financial power and autonomy that Sergio's unit possesses. Robert prepares to leave, bidding Monica a grim goodbye. He warns her that while these are hard times, she might not even be fully aware of how bad things really are, shielded as she is by the walls of the opera house. He has his own mission to attend to. Robert returns to the Intelligence Bureau's headquarters to report to his superior, Director Sergio Heinemann. The director sits in the shadows of his office, his monocle catching the dim light as he waits to hear how the collaboration with the opera house is proceeding. Robert doesn't sugarcoat the reality. He reports on the blatant abuse of torture and the opaque, seemingly bottomless financial resources he witnessed under Major Rauska's command. He warns that the opera house is taking dangerous liberties, operating far outside any legal framework. Sergio listens with a grim expression, admitting that he, too, harbors growing doubts about their methods, setting the stage for a much deeper confrontation regarding the true nature of this mole hunt. Robert meets with his superior, the chief of the Intelligence Bureau, in a quiet, high-ceilinged office. He doesn't hide his frustration, questioning why they were ordered to participate in what feels like a futile investigation. To Robert, the whole idea of a mole feels like a ghost story told by the opera house. Robert presses the issue, suggesting that instead of hunting a phantom mole, they should consider the more logical possibility of a simple information leak. The chief listens with a stony expression, his monocle glinting in the low light. The chief's tone is patronizing. He asks Robert if he's been poisoned by the delusions of the opera house already. He admits the trench nobles of Jolanta's unit are mad, but he warns that ignoring their instincts could be a fatal mistake for the Bureau. The chief remains skeptical of the opera house's testimonies. He notes that Jolanta's unit is the only one making a fuss about this supposed mole, and he fears the mutual suspicion is tearing the Intelligence Bureau apart from the inside. To him, this isn't the time for useless doubts. Sergio, the chief, explains the reality of their world. Intelligence agencies routinely manipulate information to increase their own power. He tells Robert not to believe everything he's heard at the Opera House. Despite his doubts, he orders Robert to continue the joint investigation, but with a clear command: hold them back if they step over the line. Robert accepts the order with a grim "understood, sir." As he leaves, the chief picks up the phone, muttering about how the whole mole situation is nonsense. He asks the person on the other end for an update on their observation of the Opera House, noting that their security officer is becoming a nuisance. It seems everyone is watching everyone else. The chief's expression darkens as he hears the news of the prisoners being released. He's disgusted by the idea that the Opera House might have a soft spot for children, calling them cowards for showing such weakness in the middle of a national crisis. When asked what should be done, the chief is cold and decisive. To him, sympathy for a child is out of the question. He promises to take care of it himself, his eye glinting with a ruthless intent that matches Jolanta's own dark nature. The chief lights a cigar, the smoke curling around his monocle. He refers to Jolanta as that witch, frustrated that she won't allow him even a moment of peace. The hatred between the bureau heads is almost as strong as their hatred for the state's enemies. The General Staff Headquarters stands tall and imposing, a monument to the order and control that the Intelligence Bureau is struggling to maintain. Inside these walls, the real war is being fought with ink, secrets, and betrayal. Inside the office, the pressure is mounting. Robert reports that the Opera House is pushing them again, specifically demanding evidence for xenophobia within the Intelligence Bureau itself. Robert is struggling to figure out where his authority begins and ends in this joint nightmare. The chief dismisses Robert's concerns with a wave of his cigarette. He calls the Opera House agents stray dogs who bark at anything, and he warns Robert again not to let their delusions win him over. He wants his captain focused on the Bureau's interests, not Jolanta's games. The chief spreads out a map, explaining the political reality. He admits that xenophobia is growing, but he argues that the Republic must remain free and sovereign. He's wary of the Federation, their supposed protector, turning them into a mere vassal state. For him, this is a fight for the soul of the country. The chief's anger flares as he points to the flag. He mocks the idea that the West is their friend when they force the Republic to pay friendship fees, bow down, and act as their henchmen. To him, it's a humiliating arrangement that he can barely stomach. Sergio's frustration boils over. He asks how they're any different from cattle being led by the nose. He questions if the Republic is truly a sovereign country at all, or if they've already sold their independence for a false sense of security. The chief turns a sharp gaze on Robert, asking if the captain also loves the Federation. When Robert hesitates, Sergio calls him a damned traitor for even thinking about it. Robert tries to argue that this subservience is simply the price of peace, but the chief admits he despises that price from the bottom of his heart. Later that evening, Robert sits in a dimly lit bar, nursing a drink. He's completely perplexed by his meeting with the chief. Another officer notices his grim expression and asks if it's been a hard day at work. For Robert, that's a massive understatement. Robert pours out his heart to his colleague, unable to make sense of which side his boss is actually on. Is he white or black? Truth or lies? His friend jokes about switching jobs, but they both know there's no escape from the mess they're in. One wrong move could be a serious problem for both of them. Robert decides he has no choice but to do his job, even if he's not sure his boss is really cooperating with them. He and his colleague begin to hatch a plan. They'll draw the security department's attention and rely on the Opera House for the rest. It's a high-stakes gamble that Robert knows will be a lot of work for everyone involved. They raise their glasses in a grim toast. In for a penny, in for a pound, Robert says, committing himself to the plan. His colleague echoes the sentiment with a solemn, for the Republic. Their loyalty is clear, even if their methods are getting murkier by the hour. Back at the General Staff headquarters, papers are scattered across the floor, evidence of the chaos inside the chief's office. Monika Slusarska is there, looking around in confusion. She wonders how did it come to this, as the tension in the building reaches a breaking point. Robert returns to Jelena Roska, reporting that his boss is oddly interfering with the investigation and even warned him against the delusions of the opera house. Jelenta's eyes narrow under her hat. She asks if he's absolutely sure he hasn't misunderstood the chief's meaning. The game of cat and mouse has taken a turn Robert didn't expect. Jelenta is delighted by the development. "Splendid," she exclaims, asking Robert what he expects from her unit. Robert is bold. He wants to lure his own chief out of the main office so they can investigate it. Monika, watching from the side, is terrified. She thinks this is going way too far, and she can't believe Robert wants to use only General Staff personnel for such a risky move. Robert insists this is an internal problem of the General Staff, but Jelenta's mocking smile suggests she's not about to let him handle it alone. The fragile alliance between them is pushed to its limit as they prepare to cross a line from which there is no return. Robert sighs, the weight of the upcoming betrayal etching itself onto his face. Jelenta fixes Monika with a cold stare and issues a final command. "Second Lieutenant, go there." She orders her to infiltrate the heart of the intelligence department, warning that a single mistake will be their end. With a nervous "why yes," Monika steels herself for the clandestine operation that lies ahead. In the dead of night, Robert and Monika begin their clandestine search. They tear through the intelligence chief's office, pulling books and files from the shelves in a desperate hunt for the truth. Every second feels like a gamble. Robert's heart stops as he finds it, a hidden document with a title that makes his blood run cold. Plan to assault the official residence of the Prime Minister and assassinate him. He can't believe it's actually here, in his own superior's office. The proof is undeniable. Monika is ecstatic, whispering that they've finally done it. Robert looks grim, admitting that the opera house's suspicions were right all along. They found the ultimate evidence of treason. There's no turning back now. Robert's resolve hardens. It's do or die. Monika urges him to hurry. They're racing against time before the chief discovers what they've found. They have to get this evidence to Jelena Roska immediately. They burst into a meeting with Jelena Roska and the intelligence chief. Robert slams the file down, presenting it as proof of treason from within the General Staff. Jelena looks at it calmly, as if she'd been expecting this very moment. Robert is still in shock, unable to imagine how their own doctrine could have been twisted so far. Jelena's reaction is a terrifying, mock-sympathetic smirk. She notes how far the Republic's enemies have infiltrated, and she thanks Robert for making a good decision. She reaches out to shake his hand, but the air is suddenly thick with hidden malice. Jelena's smile widens as she reaches for her sidearm. "Then, are we all right?" she asks, the friendly facade completely vanishing. The trap is about to spring. Robert takes Jelena's hand, thinking he's found an ally. In reality, he's just sealed his own fate. The shadows seem to stretch as the Major prepares to strike. Suddenly, the room erupts into violence. Robert is tackled and pinned to the floor by his own comrades. Monika is forced to help restrain him, her face a mask of confusion and fear. Jelena stands over him, her gun drawn and cold eyes fixed on his bleeding face. Robert is slammed into the ground, a boot crushing his face. He looks up to see the intelligence chief standing over him, wearing a smug, triumphant smile. The betrayal is total. Robert realizes too late that the man he reported to was never on his side. The chief commends his subordinates for a job well done. Monika is reeling, whispering "warrant officer" in disbelief. Jelena's voice is like ice as she delivers the final blow. "It's a trap, Second Lieutenant." The realization hits Monika like a physical blow. Monika is shattered, realizing she's been a gullible recruit used to lead Robert into this nightmare. Jelena doesn't deny it, simply noting that Monika's newness made her the perfect pawn. She orders Lena Marlton to begin the next phase of the preparations as they drag the broken captain away. Robert is taken to the deepest part of the opera house, tied to a chair in a dark, damp cell. Jolanta stands over him, mocking him with the title he sought to uncover. "How do you do, Mr. Mole?" Robert can only stare in horror, asking what on earth is happening. Jolanta leans in, her eyes burning with a sadistic joy. She asks if Robert liked her script. She reveals the final, crushing truth. The chief of intelligence was her accomplice all along. The very man Robert trusted was the one who wrote the plan for his downfall. Every argument and quarrel in front of the staff was just a stage performance. Jolanta explains the game. They use Robert to uncover the real xenophobes in the department. The assassination plan was a fake, forged by Jolanta herself to draw the traitors out into the light. Robert was never the investigator. He was always the moinu. The truth breaks Robert. "I was set up," he screams, his pride and loyalty crumbling into dust. Monica watches from the corner, her own sense of justice warped by the sheer scale of the manipulation. Robert tries to salvage some honor, claiming he was prepared for this and won't betray his comrades. Jolanta just smiles coldly, telling him not to worry. He won't be interrogated. His presence is the only thing she needs now. She has no use for his words. A field telephone rings in the silence of the cell. Jolanta ignores Robert's defiance, her focus entirely on the machine. An officer informs her of a call from the Intelligence Bureau. The next act of her play is beginning. On the phone, the intelligence chief plays his part, asking Jolanta if she's calling about an invitation to a party. Jolanta responds with a coded message about a kidnapped child, keeping the facade alive for any ears that might be listening. Jolanta sighs dramatically on the phone, telling the chief that she can't come running right now. She reports that they have the traitor under arrest and asks what should be done about his comrades. Robert is sweating, realizing that Jolanta is about to wipe out everyone he ever worked with. Every word she speaks is a death sentence. Jolanta casually mentions the children that were released earlier. Robert's eyes go wide as he realizes the trap isn't just for him. It's for everyone involved. The release of those children was just another carefully timed part of the script. Jolanta delivers the most cruel revelation of all. She asks Robert how he'd feel if he knew the children he tried to save were the ones who sold him out. She knows Robert's comrades will now target those very children for revenge, and she finds the whole situation so much fun. Her lack of a soul is finally on full display. Robert is speechless. "Wah," he gasps, unable to comprehend the level of depravity. Jolanta is laughing now, enjoying the absolute destruction of Robert's moral compass. She's turned his compassion into a weapon against him. The full weight of the deception finally crushes Robert's spirit. He realizes Jolanta didn't just set him up. She used the very people she called swine as bait to feed on each other's fear. His voice trembles with pure loathing as he calls her a fucking bastard. But Jolanta only offers a cold, satisfied smile. In her eyes, this isn't cruelty. It's a masterpiece of political hygiene. Robert's rage boils over into a desperate scream, branding them all traitors to the motherland. Jolanta's response is a sharp, stinging slap that cuts his defiance short. She coldly lectures him on the hypocrisy of men who bow to foreign kingdoms while sacrificing their own countrymen without a second thought. She tells the broken captain that there is no help for trash who glorify their own death, demanding he look at his own stupidity before he shows any more disdain for the peace they've built on these lies. Robert's voice breaks as he screams in a final, desperate rage. "Peace?" he spits, accusing Jelena Roska of forgetting the very cause they were all supposed to be fighting for. But Jolanta doesn't flinch. Her eyes remain like ice as she reminds him of the reality of war, that they were ordered to fight to the last man, to defend and retake the city at any cost. To her, Robert's cause is just a pretty word for a bloody necessity. Jolanta stands amidst the metaphorical ruins of Robert's ideology. She asks him if he understands why her men died. It wasn't for honor or a beautiful cause. It was because they were ordered to. She sees Robert's grief as a luxury he can no longer afford. For Robert, the beautiful cause has finally turned into a pile of corpses he can no longer look away from. Robert is spiraling into madness, his eyes wide and unfocused. Jolanta delivers the final, crushing blow. She tells him he will drink the cup of humiliation to the very bottom. She has no interest in his masturbatory delusions of honor. She has stripped him of his rank, his pride, and his humanity, leaving him as nothing more than a broken witness to her dark theater. The psychological torture reaches its peak. Jolanta's face is a mask of twisted amusement as she mocks Robert's terror. She promises him that he won't just be a spectator. He will be part of her next performance, one that will be held before a line of corpses. Robert is trapped in a living nightmare, unable to look away from the monster he's finally met. Jolanta turns away, humming a dark tune as she leaves the broken captain behind. To her, war is only sweet to the scum who have never actually experienced its soul-crushing reality. She has seen the truth, and she has let it turn her into the very devil the Republic needs to survive. She walks out of the darkness, satisfied with her latest script. Elsewhere in the opera house, the mood is one of cold, professional preparation. Warrant Officer Lena Marlton checks her rifle with a practiced hand, while Sergeant Gustav, the veteran trench noble, loads his weapon with a cigarette dangling from his lips. There's no drama here, only the deadly efficiency of killers who have been told to clear the trash. The chapter concludes on a chilling note as the entire opera house unit gathers in the armory. Donning gas masks and arming themselves to the teeth, they stand beneath the flag of the Republic, ready to begin their final cleanup operation. The investigation is over, the mole is caught, and now the slaughter begins. Chào mừng đến với nhà hát opera, nơi công lý được viết bằng máu và nỗi sợ hãi tuyệt đối. At a peaceful house within the Federal Army headquarters, a mother's stern voice echoes through the halls. This is Diana Barchett, a woman who balances the chaos of motherhood with a far more dangerous profession. Breakfast is a whirlwind of activity. Diana rushes her children, ensuring they don't miss school, while her mind is likely already miles away, focused on the gears of the military machine. The moment the kids are out of sight, the domestic mask slips. Colonel Diana Barchett takes a call regarding a scandal in the 15th Division. Her solution? Cover it up using secret funds. To her, money is just another weapon in the Republic's arsenal. As her children wave goodbye, Diana prepares for her own day. The apron is gone, replaced by a decorated uniform and a briefcase that holds more than just paperwork. A military vehicle arrives to pick her up. The transition from mother to high-ranking officer is seamless, as the quiet suburban street gives way to the harsh reality of her duties. In a private meeting room, Diana sits across from Major Jelena Roska, the sharp-witted leader of the opera house. The air is thick with the scent of coffee and calculated diplomacy. The two women exchange pleasantries with smiles that don't quite reach their eyes. Diana suggests a more personal touch, inviting Jolanta to call her by her first name, yet the military hierarchy remains palpable. Diana presents the briefcase, referring to its contents as a popular product. It's a rigorous approach to a messy problem, but in their world, efficiency is valued above all else. Jolanta listens as Diana frames the situation as a domestic issue. They both know the stakes. Any sign of weakness or internal strife could lead to the withdrawal of troops or worse. The live ammunition Diana promised is revealed, stacks upon stacks of currency. These secret funds are the fuel for the upcoming performance, a way to rewrite reality to favor the government. As the funds are secured, a soldier salutes, announcing that the time for battle has arrived. The stage is set for a carefully choreographed operation. Far from the headquarters, military units surround a secluded house. It's a grim scene where the silence of the outskirts is about to be shattered by the sound of gunfire and shouting. Inside the house, chaos reigns. Thugs are brutalizing victims, accusing them of being traitors. Through her binoculars, Jolanta watches with a cold, almost predatory smile. To her, these traitors are merely actors in her next play. Jolanta maintains her surveillance while her soldiers prepare for the assault. Every move is tracked, every detail noted for the official report that will soon be written. She consults with Robert Neymark, her scarred and stern second-in-command. Her first question isn't about the tactical situation, but about the audience. Where's the press? The area is swarmed by reporters and curious bystanders. Robert warns her that about half are journalists, all eager for a sensational story. Jolanta's reputation is at stake, and she needs this to look like a clean rescue. Jolanta scoffs at the idea of being a lady, suggesting she's more like a goddess. Her arrogance is matched only by her competence in orchestrating these high-stakes events. Sergio Heinemann, the director of the Opera House, smokes a cigar as he watches the scene. He reminds Jolanta of the narrative they must maintain. This is a rescue mission, and it must look good for the public. The military police begin their psychological warfare, using megaphones to demand the release of hostages. It's a standard procedure, but the tension in the air is anything but routine. Gunfire erupts from the house. The soldiers immediately take cover, and a command, "Hold your fire," is shouted to prevent a premature bloodbath that could ruin the optics. Panic spreads among the bystanders and press as the situation escalates. The police warn that if innocent people are hit, they cannot guarantee anyone's safety. The stage is becoming truly dangerous. Amidst the chaos, Jolanta's eyes sparkle with excitement. The gunfire from the house has given them exactly what they needed, a sufficient cause for action. The play is about to reach its climax. Assault infantry, donned in gas masks, prepare for the breach. The order is given to move out, and the air is filled with the grim resolve of soldiers about to enter a kill zone. Major Jolanta pulls the young Lieutenant Monica Slusarska aside, whispering instructions for a specific role in this unfolding drama. While Monica struggles with the weight of the moment, Jolanta's eyes reflect nothing but cold, strategic calculation. As the team, including Bernard, settles into their final positions, the air thickens with anticipation. The stage is perfectly set, and the Major prepares to give the signal that will turn this standoff into a decisive, gas-filled strike. Jolanta gives the signal. On her mark, Captain Robert Neymark prepares to deploy the gas. He's cold, efficient, and, as he puts it, quite used to taking out the garbage. The unit is on high alert, binoculars fixed on the target house. Major Jolanta and Captain Robert pull their gas masks tight. Behind the glass lenses, their eyes remain sharp and devoid of hesitation. For them, this isn't just a raid. It's a performance where every move has been pre-planned. The live ammunition is launched. Canisters of tear gas smash through the windows, filling the interior of the suburban house with a thick, suffocating fog. The tranquil neighborhood becomes a scene of sudden, violent intrusion. Inside, the suspects are caught completely off guard. The gas blinds them, turning the living room into a death trap. One man stares in horror through the window as his world literally goes up in smoke. Coughing and gasping for air, the occupants stand no chance. In the chaos of the smoke, the Opera House soldiers move in with brutal efficiency. A man is kicked to the ground while another is cut down by a flurry of gunfire. This is the reality of urban suppression. Heavy boots stomp through the haze. The soldiers move in a synchronized rhythm, their presence felt before they are even seen through the blinding white gas. The suspects try to fight back, firing their pistols blindly into the smoke, but they are no match for the armored figures in gas masks. The Opera House unit advances steadily, their rifles raised, turning the house into a slaughterhouse. It becomes a bloodbath. Suspects are executed at point-blank range as they choke on the gas. The brutality is absolute. In the heat of the smoke, screams are silenced by the rhythmic thumping of military rifles. Soldiers in gas masks sweep through the rooms, gunning down anyone in their path. The interior of the house is riddled with bullets and stained with blood. Outside, the world thinks a rescue mission is underway, but inside, it's a systematic purge. One of the radicals falls, his face contorted in agony as he gasps his final breath. Meanwhile, a soldier calmly cycles the bolt of their rifle, ejecting a spent casing with a mechanical click. The new recruit, Monika Slusarska, is in the thick of it. She aims her rifle, witnessing the grim reality of her unit's methods. Walls are peppered with bullet holes and blood as the cleansing continues. A shell casing flies through the air, glinting in the dim light. The shooting finally stops, leaving behind a silence punctuated only by the heavy breathing of the soldiers and the distant crackle of radio comms. The aftermath is devastating. Monika looks down at the bodies, her mind reeling. She sees the faces of those the public will soon be told were the hostages they were trying to save. The weight of the lie starts to settle in. Struggling for air, Monika rips off her gas mask, gasping and retching. The smell of the chemicals and the blood is too much for her. Her eyes are wide with shock and trauma, a stark contrast to the cold composure of her superiors. Monika sits slumped against a wall, coughing her lungs out. Jolanta watches her with a mixture of pity and annoyance, mocking the new recruits and their weak stomachs. Robert joins in, suggesting that only those who survive accidents get promoted. As the bodies are cleared out, Monika tries to wash the soot and blood from her face at a nearby basin. The water is cold, but it doesn't wash away the images burned into her memory. Jolanta approaches the shaken Monika, casually suggesting endurance training to help her get used to the gas. For Jolanta, the trauma of her subordinate is just another minor hurdle to be managed with military discipline. Meanwhile, Diana Barchet is back in the safety of her home, relaxing in a bath. She takes a call about the operation, learning that the wound has been taken care of. It's all a game of foreign policy and media control, funded by the stacks of money she provided. Diana smirks. The play has worked. The information is in her control, and the men of the opera will have no trouble feeding their families with the bonuses from this successful mission. She's the director of a much larger stage. The next day, the newspapers tell the story Diana and Jolanta wrote. The far-right attacks civilians. Youth tortured while fleeing radicals. The truth of the internal purge is buried under headlines of heroism and villainy. Everybody loves their kids, after all. On a desk littered with cigarette butts and the morning's headlines, the irony is thick. Patriotism, it seems, isn't achieved with words alone, but with the bloodshed in a house in the suburbs. Jolanta sits back, smoking a cigarette, looking out at the world she's helped manipulate. How peaceful, she remarks. The chaos she orchestrated has resulted in the perfect, quiet reality the public desires. At the Prime Minister's official residence, Director Sergio Heinemann reports the success. The PM is impressed by the mastermind who cleaned up the mess so quickly, though they both know the price of that efficiency. The Prime Minister turns his gaze to Sergio, half joking about who is really pulling the strings behind the attack. The director remains unruffled, a surprise for some, but a standard day for the opera house, though the true orchestrator's name hangs unspoken in the air. Sergio speaks of soldier's honor, and the Prime Minister offers a cynical smirk. On the surface, they are in perfect sync. The mission was a success, and the narrative is secure. But as the silence returns to the room, the PM's satisfaction begins to curdle into a deep, burgeoning resentment. In the high-walled offices of the Republic, the Prime Minister sours. He looks at a photograph of Major Jolanta Roska, his voice dripping with disdain. He wanted a disciplined force, a guard dog for his peace, not the untrained mad dog he sees in her. He slams his hand onto the desk, his anger boiling over. Just how many children will this dog bite? He demands. To him, the opera house's brutal methods are becoming a liability he can no longer ignore. Director Sergio Heinemann remains unmoved. He looks at the images of the casualties as a cheap sacrifice, the lowest possible cost for maintaining the state's grip. The Prime Minister is appalled, reminding the director that human lives are at stake, yet the wheels of the investigation turn nonetheless. The shadow of nationalism looms over the country. Sympathizers are everywhere, and the source of their strength lies in the volatile East. In the darkness, Those who oppose the Republic gather, their numbers growing as the political divide widens. The director's eyes narrow as he contemplates the threat. The East is not just a hotbed for radicals. It's a region festering with rot that could consume the entire Republic if left unchecked. A map reveals the fragile geopolitics of the region, the Chortek Union Republic and the Gardarai Kingdom. The East is ruined, plagued by drugs and jingoists. Sergio knows they have little choice but to follow this lead, even if it pushes the limits of their authority. As the director prepares to leave, the Prime Minister asks if he has anything to say to the families of the deceased. It's a moment of moral friction, a final plea for humanity in a world of cold calculation. Sergio dismisses the question as unimportant. He takes his leave, walking past Jolanta, who stands waiting by a car. The Prime Minister is left behind, his concerns dismissed by the very people tasked with protecting his regime. Inside the car, Sergio updates Jolanta. The higher-ups are in a foul mood, but he secured permission for their next mission in the East. He mentions a sacrifice named Jacob, but to the higher-ups, not a word was said about the man. To them, he was already forgotten. Jolanta's face tightens. Not a single word of respect for the soldiers who gave up their lives for their country, she asks. Beneath her ruthless exterior, there's a simmering resentment for the politicians who treat their lives like disposable assets. Sergio sighs, calling the Prime Minister a good man with different values. Jolanta scoffs, labeling him an idiot naive enough to believe in humanity. For her, the world is divided into predators and prey, with no room for beauty or sentiment. The conversation shifts to the logistics of the East. Sergio reminds her that the other side, the extremists, are also brilliant soldiers in their own right. It's a war of quality against quality, and the outcome will be decided by those on the front lines. Jolanta's aide, Robert Neymark, drives as they discuss their lack of recognition. If only they praised us like that, he mutters. The ratings for the Opera House are always harsh, a thankless task for those who do the state's dirty work. Sergio hands over a file. They have a massive list of arms, ammunition, and the sympathizers who fund the scum in the East. Jolanta scans the pages, her mind already calculating the next strike. Jolanta knows that despite their wealth, the Opera House is facing a global network. They need to track down the suppliers, the foreign entities pulling the strings from the shadows. Sergio points out a missing box of military-grade stimulants among the seized goods. The drug problem is a foreign infection, possibly from the Federation or the Kingdom. It's another layer of rot they must peel away. The drug countermeasure is imperative. Sergio smokes, his eyes cold. They'll have to take drastic measures to stop the spread before it destabilizes the entire military. He warns Jolanta to remember the power balance. Since their attack on the right wing, the left wing has begun gaining more influence. In the Republic, every action has a political reaction. Jolanta dismisses the talk of party members and ideologies. As her car drives away into the night, she curses the peaceful world that's vanishing before her eyes. For her, ideologies are just another lie. The scene shifts to a massive steam locomotive thundering through the countryside. Jolanta's team is on the move, heading toward the heart of the conflict in the East. Through the train windows, the landscape flies by, a blur of trees and shadows. In the dining car, the unit enjoys a rare moment of respite. Robert and another officer sit at a table, their faces shadowed. Monika Slesarska is there too, her back to the camera, as they wait for their meal. The train pulls into a station as waitstaff prepare to serve the soldiers. The transition from the tension of the capital to the mundane routine of travel is brief but welcome. Boots stomp on the carpeted floor as more personnel move through the cars. Monika looks calm as she begins her meal, while a group of armed soldiers moves past in the background. Even in the dining car, the presence of the military is constant and unavoidable. A formal request for a surprise inspection suddenly cuts through the quiet of the dining car. The military police are boarding, their unexpected presence shattering the unit's brief respite. Monika and her comrades look up in confusion, wondering why the border defense is tightening its grip so aggressively on its own soldiers. The inspection gets underway with a blunt demand. Papers, please. As the MPs loom over them, the members of the Opera House comply, their boots echoing against the floorboards. The long journey to the east has only just begun, and it seems the scrutiny from their own side will be just as relentless as the threats waiting at the border. Jolanta remains cool under pressure, her eyes betraying nothing as the military police finish their check. The officer salutes her, his task complete, but the air in the dining car remains heavy with the unspoken power of the Opera House. With the inspection over, the team returns to their meal. Robert and the others encourage Monica to enjoy the food, specifically the Meunier fish. In a world of war and politics, a good meal is one of the few honest pleasures left, and Robert reminds the young lieutenant that she should believe what the major and he say about quality cuisine. Moni, however, is more concerned with how long it will take for the whole nation to feel this kind of peace. Jolanta handles the final part of the encounter with a sharp, patriotic reminder. When an MP asks for more ID, she simply tells him, "This is the Republic. Speak Republican." It's a subtle flex of her authority, reminding everyone in the room exactly where they stand. The MP is quickly put in his place. Jolanta offers a mock "thank you for your service," while Robert watches with a slight, knowing smirk. The power dynamic is clear. The Opera House answer to no one but themselves. As the papers are handed back, the train continues its journey. The unit finishes their meal in silence, the brief interruption already in memory as they prepare for the challenges awaiting them in the east. Outside, the landscape shifts from the prosperity of the capital to the desolation of the frontier. Jolanta and Monica sit across from each other, the landscape flying by outside. The Major's hatred for the people of the Federation is clear, calling them detestable. Monica, ever the naive observer, can only offer a quiet in response to her superior's bitterness. The train passes through a landscape of ruins, a stark reminder of the wars that have shaped their world. The skeletal remains of buildings line the tracks, a silent testament to the destruction that the Republic still struggles to overcome. Jolanta adjusts her cap, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "This is where it all begins," she says. The mission in the East is more than just a military operation. It's the start of a new chapter in her long game of power. Monica is confused by Jolanta's words. "Begins? What?" she asks. Jolanta's answer is simple and chilling. The post-war period. To her, peace is just a different kind of conflict, one fought with lies and manipulation rather than bullets. In the background, the broken streets of the East are filled with desperate people. A humorous interlude breaks the tension. In a meta-commentary on their situation, a meme-style panel references the game, "Papers, Please." Even in a dystopian setting, there's always room for a bit of grim irony about the bureaucratic nightmares of their world. The scene shifts to the grandeur of traditional architecture, flags of the Republic waving proudly. The word traditions appears, signaling a shift to a more cultural aspect of life in the military. Every nation and every army has rituals they hold dear. Tradition can be a burden or a comfort, but everyone must face it. In the army, these traditions are the glue that holds the soldiers together, even when they are surrounded by the bodies of their enemies. It's a way to maintain a semblance of normality in an abnormal world. The weight of their duties often leaves the soldiers exhausted. Jolanta looks ready to collapse, muttering about wanting to go home, while Monica and the others are similarly spent. The glamour of the military often fades under the crushing reality of their work. "I'll leave the rest up to you." Someone groans. Monica just wants to sleep. It's Fat Thursday, a holiday where the people of the Republic indulge in their favorite foods, specifically the deep-fried donuts known as pakski. Robert Neymark looks thoughtful as he holds one, wondering how the military celebrates this particular tradition. After all, even soldiers need a treat now and then. The answer is simple. They eat. Heaps of pakski are served to the unit, a mountain of dough and sugar intended to bring good luck. Superstitious soldiers believe that failing to eat on this day will bring a curse of bad luck. Monica and Jelena dive in. Their professional facades momentarily drop for the sake of the donuts. The entire team is soon stuffed. Monica and Jelena are drawn in a comical, chibi-like style as they continue to munch on the donuts. Even the stern Robert and the other officers find themselves caught up in the sugary frenzy. It's a rare moment of genuine, light-hearted camaraderie. Monica is particularly enthusiastic, claiming she eats so much to save on future food expenses. Her youthful energy and bottomless stomach are a source of amusement for the rest of the unit, who watch in awe as she devours donut after donut. Second Lieutenant, do you eat this much every year? Robert asks, clearly impressed. Finally, Monica is finished. She raises her arms in triumph, a small smile on her face as she manages to polish off every single Paxki on her plate. It's a minor victory, but in her world, you take whatever wins you can get. The rest of the team looks on with a mixture of exhaustion and respect. Director Sergio Heinemann and Robert Neymark walk through the city streets, donuts in hand. They discuss their departure and the director's decision to provide for some local children. Sergio claims he's too old to be eating like a fool, yet even he isn't immune to the holiday spirit. They observe the children of the ruins, their joy a fleeting moment of peace in a harsh environment. Sergio stops to give a donation to Sister Teresa. Robert warns him that people might hate him for his wealth and power, but the director is unbothered. For him, the kind of peace they've established is what allows him to perform these small acts of charity. It's a complex moral landscape they navigate. Hooray for peace, Sergio mutters as he takes a bite of his donut. It's a cynical toast to a world he knows is fragile, built on the sacrifices of people the world will never know. The director's facade is as firm as ever, even in this moment of quiet charity. The ruins of the East are vast and grim. The skeletal remains of the city stretch on as far as the eye can see, a stark contrast to the sugary comfort of the Fat Thursday celebrations. This is the reality the Opera House has been sent to manage. Sister Teresa goes about her work, her face kind but weary. She begs for help from those who pass, a lone voice of compassion in a city defined by its destruction. Monica and Robert walk through the crowded market, the weight of the city's suffering pressing in on them. Sister, I beg of you, someone pleads. The sister can only offer her prayers. Well then, take care, she says to the departing soldiers. Robert and Monica venture deeper into the desolation of the East, where the festive air of Fat Thursday is swallowed by the crushing reality of the ruins. They navigate through crowds of displaced souls, walking beneath skeletal buildings that stand like ghosts of the Republic's violent past. The atmosphere grows heavy, shifting from somber observation to active suspicion. Suddenly, Robert's posture stiffens, his expression hardening into a mask of professional caution. Second Lieutenant, please casually look over there, he instructs, his voice a low whisper. Monica follows his gaze into a shadowed corner of the ruins, her youthful face tightening as she prepares to face a darkness even more pervasive than the rubble around them. In the shadows of the East, Monica and Robert witness a grim sight. A man, hollow-eyed and desperate, injects himself with a substance that's become a plague in the ruins. It's a moment of raw, unfiltered suffering that the Academy never prepared Monica for. Robert explains that the drug is a wartime elixir, a terrifying silver bullet designed to keep soldiers functional under the most extreme conditions. Monica looks on in horror, realizing that the very things meant to protect the Republic's defenders are now destroying them from within. It's an awful thing, Robert mutters. Monica is skeptical. A single pill that wipes away fatigue, pain, and fear? It sounds like a miracle, but she knows that in their world, miracles always come with a steep price. Doesn't that sound too good to be true? She asks, her youthful idealism clashing with the harsh reality of the East. Robert confirms her fears. It's silver, a military-grade narcotic that's as addictive as it is effective. He sighs, revealing the tragic fate of entire companies of men who threw their lives away for a brief moment of artificial peace. The drug is the silent killer of the frontier. Officially, it was called a nutrient, deployed to help soldiers endure the harsh environment of war. But the reality is a generation of addicts, including Robert's own former comrades. Monica realizes the Academy omitted the most brutal truths about the service they've joined. Robert is tired of the talk. He knows that words won't solve the problem, and the unit needs to take action before the rot spreads any further. They walk away from the addict, the weight of their mission growing heavier with every step. Monica looks back at the man on the ground, the needles scattered around him like tiny, silver daggers. "They didn't teach us any of this in the military academy," she whispers, her worldview continuing to crumble. Robert offers a piece of advice as they walk. "It's good to doubt what you were told, but don't dismiss everything. The world is complex, and Monica must learn to choose what to adopt and what to reject. It's a difficult lesson for a new lieutenant. It's all about how you use it," he says. They arrive at a grand, imposing building that serves as the local headquarters. A young officer salutes as they enter, the formality of the military a sharp contrast to the chaos of the streets they just left. The contrast is jarring, even for Monica. The unit moves through the polished corridors, their boots clicking on the expensive floors. They are here for a meeting of high-level officials, a gathering where the fate of the region will be decided behind closed doors. The transition from the ruins to this luxury is seamless for the senior officers. Everyone has arrived. Monica and the others join the senior commanders around a large table, the air thick with the smell of expensive tobacco and unspoken tension. The map on the carpet beneath them is a constant reminder of the territory they are here to manage. Major Jelena Roska takes her seat, the undisputed center of the room. Major Jelanta asks about the nostalgia of the East, her voice dripping with irony. She's surrounded by Director Sergio Heinemann and the local commanders, all of whom are well aware of the area's declining state. The conversation is polite, yet dangerous. Giacomo Lotti, the unit's eccentric medical officer, remarks on how the air has become relaxed since the war ended. The Chihui Sudon 15, a man with a thick mustache, isn't so sure. He mentions the black market, where explosives and gas bombs are sold as easily as breakfast. The East is far from peaceful. "We can get explosives before breakfast," the commander notes. Giacomo just smiles. Fuel, food, clothing, even medicine, everything is for sale on the black market. The director observes the mess with a cold, calculating gaze. The systems of the state have been completely bypassed by a shadow economy that feeds the very radicals they're trying to stop. "It's a mess," he concludes. "They really are selling everything." The meeting continues as the officers review a list of recent accidents. A lieutenant colonel died of a sudden illness, and 2 military police officers died in an accident while investigating. Monica looks at the files, realizing that the local authorities aren't just idle bystanders. They're being systematically eliminated. "They think another person was officially assassinated?" she asks, shocked by the audacity of the local criminals. Giacomo and Robert exchange a dark look. Jolanta laughs, calling the atmosphere quite nostalgic. She remembers a time when things were even more chaotic, a time when the opera house was even more essential to the Republic's survival. Her gaze is sharp, a predator looking at a familiar hunting ground. She knows that even the Prime Minister will eventually come begging for their help. Giacomo Lotti interrupts the tension, revealing that he has a sample of the drug silver with him. Monica and the others look on, surprised by his casual possession of such a dangerous substance. Giacomo seems almost proud of his find. He holds up the silver bullet, the small glass vial that contains the soul-crushing narcotic. The commander and the others lean in, the physical manifestation of the East rot sitting on the table before them. It's a moment of grim discovery. Giacomo handles it with a professional, yet chilling curiosity. Jelena asks if he bought it legally, her eyes narrowing. Giacomo admits he got it from a kind seller who accepts federal bills. Monica realizes the depth of the corruption. Even the military's own officers can easily obtain these soul-killing elixirs on the open market. Giacomo's smirk is particularly unnerving as he talks about the drug that costs you your soul. The unregulated market is a gold mine for the Republic's enemies. Jolanta is furious, her face contorting with a sudden, violent resolve. She realizes that as long as the East is this bad, her sword will never have a chance to rust. She's ready to start the cleaning. What an unregulated market, she spits. Giacomo's kind seller has clearly revealed a much larger problem. Monica is terrified by Jolanta's sudden intensity. She wonders if they could use more civilized methods, but the major and the director are already considering more drastic measures. The commander points out that gas bombs are much cheaper and more efficient for their budget. The human cost of these efficient methods is clearly not their concern. Moni can only mutter an eep in response to the casual talk of bombings. Giacomo just smiles. The table is littered with files and ashtrays, the physical debris of their planning. Jolanta leans in, signaling that the formal part of the mission is about to begin. Well then, let's see how well we understand the situation, she says. The opera is about to start. Monica asks if they are fighting drug pollution or attacking the funding network. Jolanta's answer is characteristically cold. They are going after the scumbag's source of funds. For her, the drugs are just a symptom of a much larger, more profitable disease. Ah, that's it, Jolanta says, her eyes fixed on the map. Giacomo and Robert listen, their own roles in the upcoming cleanup already clear. Jolanta gives a chilling thumbs up. She tells her unit they can shoot the drug dealers as collateral damage if needed. She'll handle the paperwork later. It's a green light for total, unrestricted violence in the East. Monica is horrified, but Jolanta is already moving on to the next tactical problem. I'll write it down as collateral damage. Okay, she winks. Giacomo laughs in the background. The director turns his attention to the main investigation. They need to use a smaller fish as bait to reel in a bigger fish. It's a metaphorical fishing trip that will likely lead to a mountain of real casualties. Sergio Heinemann knows the risks, but in his eyes, the survival of the Republic is worth any price. The mission to catch the bigger fish has truly begun. At the Eastern Federal Army's 15th Division garrison, the atmosphere is rigid and formal. Major Jelena Roska and her team stand before the local leadership, ready to address the rot that has taken hold in the heart of the frontier. The meeting is a collision of two very different military worlds. The 15th Division commander greets Jolanta with practiced military courtesy. He's heard of her through Colonel Diana Barchett, and his welcome is smooth, perhaps a bit too smooth. Jolanta responds with a smile that's equally polished, an honor to meet a man who has served so long. It's a dance of diplomacy between two veteran actors. The commander speaks of their shared battles and career histories, suggesting they are on the same boat. Jolanta listens, her expression inscrutable. She's surprised that Colonel Diana was so kind as to introduce her, knowing full well the political weight such a recommendation carries. The commander's eyes are closed, as if reminiscing, while Giacomo Lotti prepares a briefcase in the background. The conversation turns to the trouble at hand. The commander offers a blunt apology, admitting that his people are at fault. He plays the role of the humble leader, burdened by the failures of his subordinates. It's a performance designed to elicit sympathy, or at least to deflect blame. "Apologies, Major," he says with a heavy sigh. The commander reveals the shocking truth. The Federal Army has been supplying funds to the very anti-federal movements they're tasked with fighting. He labels them unwitting accomplices, a convenient excuse for systemic failure. Jolanta scans the documents, the scale of the corruption finally coming into focus. "Truly unexpected, Major," the commander mutters. The accounting department is full of rats, collaborators who allowed smuggling and black market distribution. The commander is shocked by the fortune they've made, blaming the lack of regulation during the war. Jolanta remains silent, her mind already moving past his excuses to the underlying reality of the case. She knows that even a career can be made or broken by such a discovery. I truly am grateful, but even your career, she muses. The commander plays his final card, claiming he was blind to his comrades' actions because he believed in them too much. He offers to do whatever we can to help to maintain relations between their nations. Jolanta appreciates the sentiment, though her eyes suggest she's not entirely convinced by his display of naive brotherhood. I appreciated the sentiment, sir, she replies coldly. The commander begs Jolanta to clean up my mess, asking for her team's best ability to decrease anti-federal sentiment. He looks broken, a man pleading for his honor to be restored. It's a masterclass in deflection, and Jolanta is the only audience member who truly understands the script. I need you to get the military staff to work with us, he pleads. The meeting concludes with a moment of forced camaraderie as the officers share drinks. Jolanta and the others toast to their wonderful alliance, the atmosphere in the room momentarily lighter. But beneath the surface, the tension remains, a silent current running through the polite exchange. Everyone is playing their part to perfection. Jolanta's team departs in their car, leaving the garrison behind. As they drive through the quiet streets, the masks they wore during the meeting begin to slip. Robert Neymark asks the question that's on everyone's mind. How was that division, Commander? Jolanta's eyes reflect a cold amusement. Quite understanding, a gentleman, she replies, her tone thick with sarcasm. In the front seat, Bernardino and Robert discuss the wonderful alliance. They exchange a look through the rearview mirror, knowing that the gentleman they just left is anything but innocent. The lines of the play have been spoken, and now it's time for the real work to begin. Bernardino's expression is one of cynical understanding. The car is filled with the shadowed faces of the Opera House unit. They move through the darkness, their own secrets hidden behind their polished uniforms. The contrast between their outward appearance and their inner thoughts is absolute. They're the shadows that maintain the light of the Republic. Suddenly, Jolanta can't hold it in any longer. She bursts into laughter, clutching her face as she mocks the commander's overacting. The entire meeting was a farce, a performance so bad she found it hard not to laugh in his face. The tension of the garrison is replaced by the manic energy of her amusement. That reeked of overacting, she giggles. It was hard not to laugh at. Robert and Bernardino join in the laughter. They're the Opera House. After all, professionals who know a bad actor when they see one. Bernardino notes that only an amateur would laugh. But in the privacy of their car, even the experts can enjoy the comedy of the commander's desperate lies. Oh, excuse me, Robert chuckles. We are the Opera House. The laughter subsides as Jolanta lights a cigarette. So, Major, what's your conclusion? Robert asks. Her answer is simple and chilling. It's all black, pitch black. She knows the commander is hiding something huge, a guilty conscience that's practically visible to her trained eyes. The nerve of those guys, she spits, the smoke swirling around her. She's not just here to clean up the mess. She's here to take control. Should we investigate it? Robert asks. Jolanta's eyes say it all. Jolanta mocks the Federal Army's reputation for honesty, calling the Engineer Corps a creative bunch, or more accurately, a bunch of sewage sludge. Her contempt for the local authorities is total. Bernardino listens, his eyes fixed on the road, while Jolanta's predatory gaze suggests she's already found her next target. The bait has been set, and now it's time to reel in the fish. To put it kindly, I call them a creative bunch, she sneers. But to be honest, they are sewage sludge. She decides to turn the tables on those who try to play her. I'll gladly take advantage of those who tried to take advantage of the situation, she declares. Her boot slams down on the floor of the car, a physical manifestation of her resolve. The commander thought he was using the Opera House to save his career, but he's just given Jolanta the perfect opportunity to seize power in the East. Jolanta Rosca sits back, a cigarette in her hand and a cold, triumphant smile on her face. This is the Republic, after all, she says. She's ready to take center stage and show everyone who's really running the show. The mission in the East is no longer a rescue or a cleanup. It's a conquest. The curtain is rising on her grandest performance yet, and the bloodshed will be the ink with which she writes her own history. "I'll show him who's really running the show," she whispers as the car disappears into the night. The raid on the illicit drug lab begins with a deafening blast. There's no warning, just the sudden shattering of peace as the operation goes live. The military police don't just enter. They barge in with overwhelming force, kicking down doors before the targets can even realize they're under attack. Inside the factory, time seems to freeze for the workers. They find themselves staring down the barrels of Republican military police rifles, their illegal operation exposed in an instant. Confusion turns to violence in a heartbeat. The MPs don't hesitate. Any movement that looks like resistance is met with a hail of bullets. Major Jelena Roska lead from the front, her aim cold and clinical. In this world, mercy is a luxury she can't afford, especially when dealing with those who poison the nation. "Drop your weapons." The command echoes through the smoke-filled air. For the workers, the choice is simple: surrender now or join their comrades on the floor. As the dust settles, the scale of the operation becomes clear. It's a sophisticated setup, well-equipped, albeit compact, proving that corruption has deep roots in this region. The raid expands, sweeping through the surrounding warehouses. Jolanta's team moves with practiced efficiency, securing the perimeter and rounding up anyone left standing. Jolanta doesn't mince words with the survivors. She offers them two options: obey and be detained, or resist and be shot. It's not a negotiation, it's an ultimatum. Some still try to hide behind legalities, claiming the sanctity of private property. But they've made a fatal mistake. They're trying to use laws against a woman who writes her own. A rifle, but to the ribs, is the only answer they get. The military police have no patience for excuses when the evidence is staring them in the face. Deep inside the crates, they find exactly what they were looking for. High-ranking officers look on, knowing this discovery is about to set off a political firestorm. To Jolanta, this is all just a game of whack-a-mole. These small labs are just bait, scraps meant to draw out the real pigs hiding in the upper echelons of the military. As the prisoners are marched out, the cleanup operation is deemed a success. But for Jolanta, this is only the prologue to the main event. The next morning, the headlines are already doing the heavy lifting. The public is hungry for a crackdown, and Diana Barchet has given them exactly what they wanted. At home, Colonel Diana Barchet can't help but laugh as she reads the news. Everything is going exactly according to her script, and the chaos is just beginning. She knows the 2nd Logistics Division is panicking. They were too flashy, too arrogant, and now they're about to be exposed for the world to see. It's all just a matter of time. Despite her role as a master manipulator, Diana still has a home to run. Between arranging covert troop movements to the east, she's already planning her next move to reclaim the military's dirty money. Even a colonel has to worry about babysitters and making sure her kids eat their vegetables. It's a bizarre contrast, a motherly sigh one moment and a lethal order the next. As she slips in her military coat over her apron, the mask of the housewife drops. The mother is gone, and the predator is ready to return to her turf. Meanwhile, at the Eastern Federal Military Base, the mood is grim. Those in power thought they were hiding their tracks well, but the cracks are starting to show. The commander is fuming. He blames the incompetence of his subordinates and the unbridled power of the special ops units for the mess they're now in. Responsibility is a hot potato nobody wants to hold. He desperately searches for a way to cut ties and save his own skin. He needs a miracle, or at least a very convincing fall guy, before the investigation reaches his office. Inside the quiet sanctuary of a local church, Monika Slusarska shares the morning headlines with a nurse. The peaceful atmosphere feels strangely at odds with the reports of the military police's brutal cleanup operation. Monika recognizes the major's handiwork. This public display is bait, meant to stir the nest. But as the morning's quiet routine takes over, the focus shifts from the world's violence to the arriving figures of the parish. Giacomo Lotti greets Sister Teresa with a polite smile, noting how early she is. Teresa plays her part perfectly, the humble, dedicated nun who only seeks a quiet moment with the morning news before her duties begin. She seems like a pillar of compassion in this broken city. She claims she avoids the newspapers around the children, fearing that news of the ongoing war will only deepen their trauma. Monika Slusarska listens with a look of genuine curiosity, unaware of the layers of deception hiding behind that saintly habit. Giacomo commends her discretion, calling it a good lesson for someone as young as Monika. As they talk, the heavy doors of the church creak open, and Major Jolanta Roskas steps in, her presence immediately cutting through the quiet morning air. The charity work is just another part of their routine. Giacomo turns to the group, his tone pleasant but professional, signaling that it's time for the medical examinations to commence. For him, every patient is a puzzle to be managed. He starts with a young girl, examining her with a gentle touch. There's a cavity, he notes, suggesting a simple operation. It's a moment of humanity in a city that has seen so little of it, even if the doctor's smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. The conversation shifts to the cold reality of logistics, medical expenses, and official referrals. Giacomo offers to write a note for the Eastern Military Hospital, mentioning that the Army's costs haven't changed since before the war. It's a small mercy, but in this economy, it's everything. Giacomo accepts an envelope with a polite nod, refusing to be boorish toward a lady's kindness. Behind him, the warrant officer prepares to explain the next steps of their mission, while Monika and the others maintain their posts. The line of patients is long. Giacomo urges Monika to keep the flow moving, calling for the next person. Despite the military setting, they've managed to create a small sanctuary here, providing care to those the war has forgotten. As the day winds down, the church courtyard becomes a place for a brief, much-needed rest. Giacomo and Monika take a break, sharing a smoke and a drink to take the edge off the exhaustion. Teresa thanks them for their hard work, ever the grateful nun. Giacomo brushes off the praise with a casual wink. It was fun, he says, claiming that these things are worth doing. His cheerful facade remains unshaken, a mask of professionalism that hides a much darker specialty. Teresa prepares to head out for supplies, mentioning they're running low. Monika offers her a ride, but the nun politely declines, explaining that the father is already on his way to drive her. The routine seems so normal, so mundane. A dark car pulls up among the ruins, driven by a man in a priest's collar. Teresa waves a final goodbye to the soldiers, her expression soft and humble as she walks toward the vehicle, leaving the church mission behind. The moment the car doors close, the holy atmosphere evaporates. The priest, known only as Father, discusses the recent events in the capital with a grim expression. Teresa's eyes go sharp, her saintly persona fading. It's still too early to make a move, she murmurs, her tone devoid of its earlier warmth. They speak of treaties and national interests, the heavy gears of politics that ordinary citizens never see. The father understands her frustration, but emphasizes that the security treaty between the Federation and the Republic is something the kingdom simply cannot ignore. Teresa laments that her precious children were taken away, likely referring to the workers caught in the drug raid. The father notes that the Opera House's counterintelligence division performed surprisingly well, a complication they hadn't fully anticipated. As they drive through the skeletal remains of the city, the father asks if she wants to head back. They are deep in enemy territory, and staying too long is a risk they can't afford if they want to keep their operations hidden. The conversation turns to the drug scandal. The father reveals that the Federal Army is manufacturing military-grade drugs right under everyone's noses. It's a sinful deed, he says, where money and greed make men reckless enough to risk everything. Lord, please save their souls, the father says with a thin, cold smile. It's a mockery of a prayer shared between two people who know exactly how much blood is on their hands. There is no holiness in this car, only calculations. He instructs Teresa to spark the divine flames by leaking the drug scandal to a reporter. He hopes it will blow a hole in Federal Republican relations. Teresa looks away, pretending to have second thoughts. I don't think this is the right thing to do, she sighs. The father isn't buying her sudden act of conscience. He prepares to leave, asking her why her heart is hurting now after everything they've done. He knows her far better than the soldiers back at the church. Later, Teresa kneels alone at the church altar, her head bowed in prayer. "Forgive me, Lord. I tremble at the sins hiding in my colleagues," she whispers, the very picture of a repentant soul. But the church is empty, and her audience is only the silent icons. The facade cracks. "Because it's so boring," she says, her voice flat. The U-turn in her personality is chilling. The trembling she spoke of wasn't fear or guilt. It was pure, unadulterated boredom with the father's small-time schemes. Her expression shifts from saintly to manic. She mocks the lame script the father is trying to write, demanding to know where the excitement and the sparkle are. Her heart doesn't race for petty politics. She craves something much more visceral. She admits the father is probably a good person, but he's just so incredibly boring. To Teresa, a life of simple work and predictable goals is a prison. She's not here for the mission. She's here for the chaos. Teresa's heart is on fire, but not with Holy Spirit. She looks toward the heavens, dreaming of beautiful flames and fiercer schemes. She is a wolf in sheep's clothing, waiting for the spark that will turn this fragile piece into a magnificent inferno. Teresa stands before the altar, her expression serene, but her thoughts a chaotic storm of anticipation. "I look forward to playing with you all," she whispers to the silent icons, relishing the thought of the fun she's about to unleash on the unsuspecting world. Minutes later, the mask is back on. Teresa returns to her duties at the orphanage, playing the part of the gentle, hygienic sister. She teaches the children the importance of washing their hands and rinsing their mouths, her saintly facade so convincing it's almost terrifying. While Teresa plays at saintliness, Colonel Diana Barchett is deep in the trenches of realpolitik. Reading the morning news about the military police's actions, she's already calculating her next move. She demands a tighter grip on the narrative before it spirals out of control. Her subordinates are worried. Promises are hard to keep in this climate, but they vow to do their best. Diana knows that best isn't enough when you're fighting a shadow war for the heart of the nation. In the back of a secure vehicle, the discussion turns to exposure. Foreign agencies are likely trying to destabilize the East, and they found a very real scandal to use as a wedge. Diana's enemies are working with devilish efficiency, and she wants them dealt with, no matter the cost. Publicly, it's all smiles and handshakes. Diana Barchett meets with Major Jelena Roska, congratulating her on helping with their problems. It's a performance for the ages. Two lethal women sizing each other up while pretending to be allies. "Was this your doing?" Jelena asks, her gaze sharp as a razor. The tension between them is thick enough to cut. If it wasn't the opera house that leaked the story, then a third player has entered the board. Both women sigh, realizing the script they were following has just been rewritten by someone else. They share a dark, shared amusement at the kingdom's bullshit. Despite the rivalry, they both look forward to catching whoever is trying to play them. In this game, the only thing more dangerous than an enemy is an amateur trying to act like a pro. Strategy meetings move into the shadows. Diana offers a blank check to settle things, emphasizing the importance of securing backups of all intelligence. The conversation turns to the second logistics division, the Achilles heel of the current administration. Even in a wealthy federation, spending tax dollars on Republican defense is a political nightmare. Diana knows that the public won't stand for it, and that vulnerability is exactly what their enemies are targeting. Money is the fuel, and the East is the tinderbox. They break down the federal army's war funds. Much of it comes from legitimate, clean, secret funds, but the second logistics division is a mess that can't be shown to the public. Jelena finds it absurd that they have to deal with the diapers of fools. But Diana reminds her that the real failure was their own inability to take the reins sooner. They share a cynical laugh over smoke. "I'd rather you set their asses ablaze," Diana says with a smirk. They're ready to watch the fools burn, as long as they can control the height of the flames. When the panicking starts, they'll be there to finish the job. Elsewhere, the commander of the 15th Division is already feeling the heat. He's got the chills, and no amount of whiskey can steady his hands as he contemplates the impending disaster. The ghosts of his corruption are finally catching up. Back at the orphanage, Teresa finds a practical use for the morning news, using the newspapers to start a literal fire. Newspapers have always been especially good for starting flames, she tells the kids with a chillingly innocent smile. She's not just talking about the grill, she's talking about society. The commander's panic reaches a fever pitch as he reads the headlines. The Federal Army is manufacturing and trafficking drugs. The scandal is out, and it's worse than he ever imagined. The cover-up has failed, and the Republican Army is being dragged down with them. Even in the eye of the storm, Diana Barchett maintains her dual roles. On the phone, she's a mother, telling her children to eat their vegetables and apologizing for work taking up so much time. It's a domestic veneer over a heart of cold steel. The moment she hangs up, the motherly tone vanishes. "Damn you, 15th Division, only giving me more work," she growls. The logistics of survival are becoming increasingly complicated, and she has no patience for the incompetence of her subordinates. The fallout is immediate and lethal. The papers report a series of misfortunes: a lieutenant colonel found dead, investigators dying in accidents, and a bizarre suicide in the logistics department. The cleanup has begun, and it's leaving a trail of bodies. Jolanta Roska and her team walk through the halls of power, their footsteps echoing with authority. They speculate on the leak, wondering who could have stood against such injustice. To the outside world, they are the heroes. To those in the know, they are the executioners. Jolanta gives a sharp order to Robert Neymark to send a safety squad to the base. She knows the Kingdom bastards have made a clever move, and she needs to tighten the net before they can escape. The counterintelligence game is afoot, and the Major is playing for keeps. The father is the next to feel the backlash. He opens a newspaper expecting to see his own scheme succeeding, but instead finds a front-page exposé on the church. Allegations of a child prostitution ring, drug trafficking, and abuse under his leadership scream from the pages. He's been outplayed by a much more vicious scriptwriter. "What is the meaning of this?" he asks, his world crumbling around him. The insane power of the leak has blindsided him. He thought he was the one starting the fire, but he's the one currently being consumed by it. In the high offices, the situation is analyzed with grim detachment. It's the work of a foreign agency, aimed at stoking nationalism while fracturing public opinion. They're being played like a fiddle, and the music is a dirge for their carefully constructed order. A heavy silence falls as they finally admit the truth. They've been outplayed. The Army's failures, combined with their own, have created a situation that is nothing short of grim. They can only hope these flames die out soon. But the Eastern Federal Military Base, the fire is already beginning to spread toward a much more dangerous target. Tension boils over outside the base's gates, where soldiers hunker behind sandbags against an increasingly restless crowd. The cleanup has moved from the headlines to the streets, setting the stage for a jurisdictional clash that will test the very soul of the Republic's alliance. At the Eastern Federal Military Base, the air is thick with jurisdictional friction. Major Jolanta Roska doesn't back down, reminding the federal commander that this is sovereign Republican land. The commander, hiding behind a thick mustache and a thicker ego, smugly cites the security pact and his right to self-defense. Jolanta's eyes narrow as she demands a permit for any foreign army to point weapons at her own citizens. The standoff by the military vehicle is a microcosm of the nation's struggle. Two powers, supposedly allies, are circling each other in a game of legal chicken while the city around them smolders. Before the tension can boil over, Colonel Diana Barchett arrives. She salutes with the practiced grace of a seasoned politician, introducing herself as a representative of the Joint Coordination Bureau. She's here to play the reasonable adult in the room. Diana smooths over the cracks with a saccharine smile, thanking the commander for his rush to support an ally. She dismisses the confrontation as a mere miscommunication, effectively neutering Jolanta's protest while the major watches with silent, simmering fury. The commander takes the out Diana has provided, lighting a cigar with an air of relaxed superiority. "We usually intend to keep order here," he says, the implication being that the Republican military is simply incapable of doing so without his help. He blows smoke into the air, dismissing the brewing scandal as nothing more than baseless rumors. It's a performance of ignorance that only someone with total immunity would dare to give. "Don't you think it's ridiculous, Major?" he asks, almost mocking Jolanta. Jolanta forces a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "As an ally, I agree wholeheartedly," she says, playing along with the diplomatic charade. She knows when to bite her tongue, especially when the colonel is watching. The three of them present a united front, a triptych of false smiles and political convenience. Behind the agreement to work together lies a web of mutual distrust and calculated maneuvers. To the public, they are partners. To each other, they are obstacles. The masks slip as soon as the formalities are over. Jolanta urges Diana to deal with Republican forces directly, rather than letting the local garrisons run wild. The commander's patronizing pat on Jolanta's shoulder is a sting she can't retaliate against, a reminder of her army's subordinate status. Outside, the reality is far from the polite conversation in the office. Soldiers stand guard, their expressions unreadable, while military trucks rumble through the streets. Diana's prayer to avoid any more bloodshed sounds like a hollow wish in a city already on the verge of explosion. Diana leaves the commander in charge of security, a move that hands him the very power Jolanta was trying to limit. Jolanta watches them walk away, her frustration reaching its breaking point. She's being sidelined in her own country. Jolanta vents her disgust on her cigarette, crushing it under her boot. "The taste is bad, but at least it's locally made," she mutters. It's a bitter commentary on the state of the Republic. Bad, but at least it was supposedly theirs. Until now. Her fist clenches as she watches the federal soldiers move with impunity. The realization that they are slowly losing control of their own sovereign territory is a bitter pill to swallow. "This is the Republic after all," she says, her voice low and dangerous. At the Federal Army garrison, the situation has turned ugly. A sea of protesters has gathered, their anger directed not just at the foreigners, but at the Republican soldiers standing in their way. "Why are you blocking your own people?" they scream, labeling Jolanta's men as disgraceful bastards. The air is filled with the sound of megaphones and the rhythmic chanting of the mob. Protesters demand that the commander show himself, while the Republican soldiers struggle to hold a line they don't even believe in. The tension is a physical weight pressing in on everyone. Among the ranks, the debate is just as heated. Soldiers argue over how much force to use, some calling the crowd idiotic, while others worry about the potential for gas bombs and Molotov cocktails. They are caught between a rock and a very angry hard place. Jolanta's voice cuts through the chaos. "Do not draw your weapons. Hold your positions," she commands. She knows that a single shot fired now will turn a protest into a massacre, one that the Republic cannot afford to have on its conscience. Monica Slusarska tries to rationalize the situation, but the demands from above are becoming increasingly absurd. She realizes that aiming a weapon at these citizens is, in effect, aiming it at the very heart of the government they are sworn to protect. The contradiction is tearing them apart. Giacomo Lotti watches from the sidelines, his expression one of weary cynicism. The war's over, and now this. He muses. To him, this is just a continuation of the same old cycle of violence and betrayal. Only the actors have changed their costumes. Monica is horrified as the crowd starts throwing stones, but Jolanta's reaction is even more shocking. "They have every right to do so," the major says coldly. "We deserve to have these stones thrown at us." It's a confession of deep-seated guilt that leaves the young soldier speechless. Monica is confused by Jolanta's sudden change in tone. The major mentions that in the East, the sides are flipped. In the past, they were the ones nimbly avoiding the stones. Now, they're the cowards trembling in the face of public fury. It's a total inversion of the power dynamic they once knew. Giacomo and Monica share a grim realization. The flipped world they live in has turned heroes into villains and protectors into oppressors. The shame they feel is palpable, a heavy fog that even the brightest military metal can't cut through. Jolanta's mind wanders to the past, to the shame Major Jacob and I carry. She speaks of how the Republic bought its precious time at the cost of its soul. The ruins around them are not just from the war, but from the moral compromises made in its wake. Giacomo cuts the heavy mood with a thin smile. "I'll tell you about the old days once we're done with this," he promises Monica. But his eyes suggest that the old days are something he'd rather leave buried in the rubble. For now, they have a job to do. The climax of the day's script takes place at a pharmaceutical company building. A crowd of desperate people is demanding answers, their cries for remedies and cures echoing off the walls. From a distance, Diana Barchett watches through binoculars, a cynical smile on her face. To her, the idea of these allies making cures is the ultimate joke, and she's about to deliver the punchline. Diana Barchett examines a vial of opium, the medicine produced in the secret lab. She notes with a chilling detachment that this poison kills in 3 minutes, which is apparently better than one that kills in 30 seconds. To her, everything is a trade-off in the business of survival. Outside the pharmaceutical company building, the mob has reached a fever pitch. Diana watches the chaos through her binoculars, her mind already 3 steps ahead. She wants to secure the targets, but she's not willing to lose a single one of her own men to do it. The worst-case scenario is just another variable to be managed. Inside the building, the air is thick with panic. The men in suits realize they've been cut off. No out-of-town calls, no outside help. They are trapped in a cage of their own making, and the bars are closing in fast. "Request for help?" one asks, his voice trembling with the realization that no one is coming. The 15th Division commander hasn't made a move yet, leaving his subordinates to rot. They frantically burn documents and prepare for the worst, knowing that if the mob forces their way in, death will be the least of their worries. The handguns they pull from the safe feel like a poor defense against the tide of public fury. Hands shake as handguns are checked and loaded. These men are not soldiers. They are bureaucrats who thought they were untouchable. Now, they're staring down the barrel of a reality they never expected to face. Gas canisters are launched, filling the air with a choking haze as the rescue team arrives. But this isn't a rescue. It's an evacuation of the guilty. The men in suits look out the windows with a mix of hope and sheer terror as the crowd surges forward. Soldiers move into position, their submachine guns ready to enforce the cleanup. The precision of their movements contrasts sharply with the frantic scrambling of the traitors inside. The net is being pulled tight. Trucks line up in the courtyard as a soldier announces that the rescue team is leaving in 10 minutes. Boxes and luggage filled with military secrets, likely evidence of their corruption, are hastily loaded. They're running out of time, and they know it. Tempers flare as the panic intensifies. Military secrets are on the line here. A man shouts, desperate to justify his fear. He's told in no uncertain terms that if he isn't out in half an hour, the mob will be on his ass. The thin veneer of military decorum has completely vanished. The plan for the escape is desperate. A flare or the sight of the crowd breaking in will be the signal to get in the car and get the fuck out of here. Every man for himself is now the only standing order. To the soldiers, these men are just those conditions they have to manage. The boarding process is a chaotic mess. Soldiers try to secure the entrance and exit, but they are fighting a losing battle against the sheer number of protesters. The urgency in their voices is a reflection of the disaster unfolding around them. From her vantage point, Diana scoffs at the ordinary rescue taking place. She knows that nothing about this is ordinary. She watches with a cold interest as the trucks from the 2nd Logistics Division pull up, her mind already calculating the fallout. Diana is surprised that the commander himself has made a move at this time. It's a bold, or perhaps a very desperate, choice. Either way, it only adds a new layer of drama to the script she's writing in real time. The arrival of the logistics trucks confirms Diana's worst-case scenario. She lights a cigarette, the flare of her lighter a small spark in the growing darkness. This is how things turn out when everything depends on the decisions of a single, terrified person. She muses on the slush fund flowing into the Ministry of War. She knows that there are witnesses to the corruption, and they'll eventually try to use it against her. Poor me, she sighs. I'll have to work overtime tomorrow, too. Her sarcasm is a shield against the gravity of the situation. The building disappears in a massive, blinding explosion. It wasn't the mob or Diana's men. The traitors have blown themselves up, desperate to destroy any trace of their crimes before the fire could reach them. Diana's wide-eyed shock quickly gives way to something else. Through the smoke and the wreckage, Diana watches with a triumphant smirk. The chickens have done exactly what she hoped. They've panicked and self-destructed. To her, cowardice is the most predictable and useful weapon in her arsenal. Thanks to this, she notes, my overtime should decrease. Smoking calmly as the flames consume the evidence, Diana offers a silent thank you to the division commander. His fear of being ruined led him to finish her job for her. Tonight's main dish is roast chicken, she says, a lethal, satisfied smile playing on her lips. The curtain falls on another perfect performance.